While it may not have felt like it at times because the Atlanta Braves actually lost a couple of series and the offense took a week off, the Braves still had a great month of May and grew their lead in the NL East.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome back to Locked On Braves. I'm your host, Jake Mastroianni. In today's episode, we're going to preview the upcoming series against the Blue Jays. We're going to look at what's coming up in the month of June and the biggest storylines going forward. But we're going to start at the top here by taking a look back at the month of May. The Braves went 18-10 in the month of May. And going through it in the way we talked about it at times on here, the comments you see on social media and on the comments of these episodes, you may have thought that it was a disastrous month for the Atlanta Braves, like they had a losing month, but they did not. In fact, they had a great month going 18-10. Now, they did lose their first two series of the year, including an extremely frustrating one at home to the Nationals that I was in attendance for on Saturday, where the offense scored one run in the final two games. And the only game they won in that series, they came back and won in extra innings. And it felt frustrating at times, but still, it was another great month for this team. They became the first team in baseball to reach 40 wins. At the end of April, their lead in the NL East was 6.5 games over the Marlins. They ended the month of May with a 9-game lead over the Nationals, and as they enter their first game of the month on Tuesday night, they have a 9.5-game lead over the Phillies, despite the Phillies having a huge month. They went 18-10 in the month of May as well, so they didn't pick up a single game in May, even with their good stretch that they had. So a great month for the Atlanta Braves, a great start to the season for the Atlanta Braves. They got out to their hot start. They maybe hit a couple of hiccups, but they survived that, still had another great month, and grew their lead in the NL East, which is what you want to see. Now, you look at the offensive team rankings for the month of May. I'm going to give you the rankings for the month of May and also their rankings for the entire season. So for runs in the month of May, they finished 6th. They're still 2nd overall on the season. In home runs, they had the 3rd most in May. They're 2nd overall on the year. Batting average, this is where you see a big difference. It's still good. They were 10th in the month of May in batting average. They're 2nd overall on the season. Slugging, 7th in May, 3rd for the entire season. Strikeouts, 15th most strikeouts in the month of May. They have the 9th fewest on the season, so a bit of a step back there. But they did walk more. They had the 18th most walks in the month of May, 23rd in that department in 2026. And you even saw a bit of a bump in stolen bases. A lot of that with Ronald Mateo being in the lineup more. 16th in stolen bases for the month of May, 22nd overall on the year. Look, it was still very much a top 10 offense last month, but they did take some steps back in the batting average department with more strikeouts, which those two kind of go hand in hand. However, you did see them walk a little bit more and steal more bases. So taking a step back in some areas, but improved in others. And overall, it was still a very good offense. Like I said, at least a top 10 offense, if not better. But there definitely were some stretches throughout the month of May where it was a bit of a frustrating offense to watch, especially, that week and a half stretch they had that ended with that series against the Nationals. You look at the individual performance for the Atlanta Braves on the offensive side of things. Ronald led the team with a 1056 OPS in 14 games. Obviously, that last 4 or 5 game stretch that he had at the end of May helped out a lot there. Drake Baldwin had a 1038 OPS in 16 games. Wouldn't have been nice to have both those two in the lineup together playing like that at the same time. Hopefully we get that at some point this season. Jorge Mateo was 3rd on the team in the month of May with a 977 OPS in 20 games. Yastrzemski really turned things around. He had a 953 OPS in May in 25 games. Those were your top 4 hitters in May, but none of them got over 60 at-bats for injuries to Acuña and Ronald and just lack of playing time for Mateo and Yastrzemski. Michael Harris was the best among those who played every day. He hit .316, scored 17 runs, 2 doubles, 7 home runs, 16 runs driven in, 4 walks to 23 strikeouts, had 1 steal, and also got caught stealing once. He had a really good month. He slashed 2, hit over 300 in the month. got on base, the 4 walks, you'll certainly take that for him. 849 OPS, so a really good month there for Michael Harris. Good to see. He got out to a little bit of a slow start, then they had the extremely hot stretch, cooled off a little bit, heated back up, and I think that's just the case with Michael Harris. I think it's similar to what we've seen before with Ozzie Albies. He's going to have some extreme highs. He's going to have some extreme lows, but fortunately, so far this season has been more highs than lows for Michael Harris. Dominic Smith continues to hit. He hit 310 in the month, but again, he only got 58 at bats. The Braves faced a lot of lefties, which really diminished the ability to get Yastrzemski and Dominic Smith, who both had good months in the lineup regularly. Matt Olson had a down month. He hit just 220. He still managed to hit 7 home runs, and he led the team with 17 runs driven in. Austin Riley struck out 39 times in May. He did hit 5 home runs, and he managed to have an OPS over 700, but it was another rough month to continue this rough start to the season for Austin Riley. Ozzie struggled the most out of all the regulars. He slashed just 218, 285, a 309 slugging for Ozzie. I say it all the time. I'll say it again. Ozzie's best quality offensively is hitting for power. So having a month where he barely slugs over 300 is just not going to cut it for Ozzie Albies. It's a 594 OPS, 4 doubles, 2 home runs. He did walk 9 times and scored 15 runs. Those are some good numbers there, but a big down month for Ozzie after his great start to the season. Obviously, Ha-Seong Kim and the catchers were a disaster offensively as well, although Chadwick Tromp did give us a big moment and an extra innings win over the Nationals. When I do these reflections on each month and, how the team performs, I typically like to look for having a few guys with extraordinary months that carry you at times. And I think you got that, albeit at separate times with Ronald and Drake. You can throw Michael Harris in there as he was pretty good throughout. Plus, you got big contributions from others like Mateo and Yastrzemski. And then you have a few guys who are just okay, but they don't kill you. And I think you got that in Olson and Riley. Certainly, they had some bad stretches in there, but they also had, some good stretches as well. And then you're going to have some guys who just have awful months. And you had that with Ozzie and with Ha-Seong Kim. Not everyone is going to be hot at the same time, but you can't have stretches where everyone is awful at the same time. I feel like the Braves had a week-long stretch like that, but they still managed to mostly survive it because of the pitching staff, which we'll talk about next. If you've got a sweet tooth like I do, you know how tough it is to find that perfect treat without all the sugar. That's why the Confetti Craze 5-Hour Energy Shot brings that nostalgic flavor back in a whole new way. This is that classic taste you remember, but with a tasty caffeine boost in 0 sugar. It's a quick, easy way to satisfy that sweet craving while keeping things simple and on the go. Confetti Craze 5-Hour Energy Shots taste just like birthday cake, vanilla and buttery flavors to let you be unapologetically extra and unstoppably energized. All cake, no sugar. You can have your cake and sip it too, minus any sugar or guilt. I have 3 little boys with more energy than you can possibly imagine. I need something that can help me keep up after a long day of work or a late night following the Atlanta Braves. The Confetti Craze 5-Hour Energy Shots can definitely help in that regard. The Funfetti flavor is back on 5hourenergy.com or Amazon. Crack open Confetti Craze 5-Hour Energy Shot today. Again, that's 5hourenergy.com or on Amazon to crack open the Confetti Craze 5-Hour Energy Shot today. Thank you, as always, for making Locked On Braves your first listen of the day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. Don't forget to check out the Everydayer Club for ad-free episodes and access to a group chat with myself and other listeners of this show. Tap the link in the show notes or go to lockedonbraves.supercast.com to join today. Well, the Atlanta Braves they excelled in the month of May with an 18-10 record. While the offense did have its moments of regression, the pitching staff was a big reason why they were able to have success in the month of May. You look at their team ranks for May and for the season. They were 5th in ERA in May. They're 3rd on the season, 6th in WHIP, 2nd on the season, 4th in batting average against, 2nd on the season. In May, though, they stepped it up with the strikeouts. They had the 2nd best K per 9 in the month. They ranked 8th in that department on the year. Walk per 9, 14th in May, so it was a little bit more. They ranked 11th there on the season. In terms of rankings, the Braves pitching staff actually took a small step back, not quite as big as what the offense did, but they were still, again, at least a top 5 pitching staff in May, if not better than that. And they continued to outperform what many thought they would do. You look at some of the individual performances from the month of May. Chris Sale, fantastic. 5 games started at 1.69 ERA, 0.97 whip, 32 innings, only 23 hits allowed, 8 walks to 42 strikeouts, had 4 quality starts of the 5 starts that he made. It's a shame he went 3-2 of the month. It's really a shame that he took those 2 losses. Offense kind of let him down in those games, but he was absolutely brilliant. Bryce Elder, 5 games started, a 3.41 ERA, a 1.14 whip, 29 innings, 24 hits, 9 walks, 25 strikeouts, 3 quality starts. His numbers are a bit inflated by 1 bad start. Overall, he was really good again. Martin Perez continues to be one of the unsung heroes of the season, especially on the pitching side. 6 games, 4 starts, a 3.47 ERA, a 1.16 whip, 23 1/3 innings, 19 hits, 8 walks, 23 strikeouts. Probably should have never left the rotation. He just continues to give you 5 solid innings every time out and gives your team a chance to win. He's been tremendous for the Braves so far. Spencer Strider made the most starts in the month, 6 starts, a 3.77 ERA, a 1.26 whip, 31 innings, just 22 hits allowed, but 17 walks, did strike out 40, but 6 home runs. Had 2 quality starts of 6. Again, you want more than that from Spencer Strider if he's going to get back to being that elite level, top of the rotation pitcher. Obviously, you can't take starts out. They all count, but you would love to take out that start in Colorado, his first start back. Really good for the most part outside of that. If he can figure out the walks and home runs, he's a Cy Young contender again, because the stuff still looks dominant, but there's just still a little something missing in every start where he runs into a little bit of trouble and the other team puts up a crooked number on him. Impressive first month over Strider after, all the time missed over the last 2 years, having to reinvent himself. I'm still very much encouraged with what we've seen from Spencer Strider, and I think there's a chance for him to just continue to get better and better. Grant Holmes, if there is a spot in the rotation that is a bit shaky, it is Grant Holmes' spot. 5 games started in May, 4.38 ERA, not terrible for your 4th, 5th starter. 1.50 whip, though. That's not great. 24.2 innings, 26 hits, 11 walks, 28 strikeouts, just 1 quality start. And we all know the thing with Grant Holmes. Great the first time through, really struggles the second and third time through. I do think overall he's a fine 4th or 5th starter, but he's got to be more consistent and at least getting you through 5 innings. What Martin Perez is doing. I mean, I hate having 2 5 and dive guys in the rotation, but if he can at least start doing that more consistently, there's just too many starts where Walt Weiss is having to go get him in the middle of the 5th inning. He can't get through it. He's got to push past that hurdle if he wants to stick in this rotation. As for the bullpen, Tyler Kinley got off to a rough start in May, but he really turned things around in the end of the month and looked like a dominant setup man once again. Dylan Lee, fantastic. He's 0.69 whip in May with 17 strikeouts and 13 innings pitched. Didier Fuentes became a weapon out of the bullpen with 15 strikeouts and 13 2/3 innings with only 7 hits allowed. Robert Suarez had just a 0.97 whip and 12 2/3 innings, allowed just 1 earned run. Raisel Iglesias did have his scoreless inning streak snapped, but he was great overall, picked up 5 saves. When your top 4 in the bullpen all have a whip of 1 or lower, it's going to be a good month. And that's exactly what this group did. The bullpen continues to just be outstanding. Even Ronaldo Lopez, he wasn't terrible out of the bullpen. He was mostly pitching in garbage time, but he wasn't terrible either. And I also have to mention Dylan Dodd. He tossed 6 2/3 innings in May, allowed just 4 hits with no walks and 8 strikeouts. He is better against righties, so he is not that left-handed reliever answer for me in the bullpen, but do want to mention he looked really good out there. Also mostly pitching in garbage time like Ronaldo Lopez, but still, those are big innings where you're not blowing up and causing Walt Weiss to have to go to somebody else in the bullpen. So really good stuff and really good work there from Dylan Dodd. Overall, this was another tremendous month by the pitching staff. They really only had 2 pitchers who didn't perform well, and that was Aaron Bummer, who's obviously no longer on the team, and J.R. Ritchie, who got optioned back down. Kinley did have an ERA over 5, but as I mentioned, he turned things around the second half of the month. Really hard once you have a bad just outing as a reliever, especially in a month sample size, to, turn that ERA around. Holmes had a 4.38 ERA, again, not terrible, but every other pitcher who threw at least an inning for the Atlanta Braves in May had an ERA of 3.77 or better. That's incredible, and a big reason why the Braves continued to win games, even with the offense shutting down for about a week or so in the middle of the month. So again, great job all around by the Braves in May, taking care of business, even when they hit some roadblocks, lost their hottest hitter in Drake Baldwin. The offense cooled off for a little bit. Then Ronald picked things up there at the end of the month, and just a great job by this Atlanta Braves team as they continue to chug along and build out that lead in the NL East. That's what you want to continue to see them do in the month of June as we now look ahead to the upcoming month. It's not the most daunting stretch of games in June. It's also not an easy one. You're playing a lot of middle-of-the-pack teams, but you also just can't take your foot off the pedal. You want to continue to win series, increase your lead in the NL East, not give other teams any hope. It starts with a 6-game homestand that begins on Tuesday night against the Toronto Blue Jays, and then the Pirates over the weekend, two teams that are hovering around 500. And then you have a 6-game road trip against the White Sox and the Mets. The White Sox have surprised a lot of people this year, but they're without Murataki Murakami, so that's a huge loss for them offensively, but they're a very scrappy bunch. I watched a couple of their games recently. They're really scrappy offense. Davis Martin is having a fantastic year for them on the mound, so that's become a team you got to watch out for. And the Mets have gotten off to a disastrous start. They've been crushed by injuries, but by the time the Braves face them, they could have Francisco Lindor, Francisco Alvarez, and Jorge Polanco back, so that's going to be a completely different team by the time the Braves face them. After that, they're back home for 6 against the Giants and Brewers. The Brewers will be the toughest test, the best team they're going to play this month. And then it's the final West Coast trip of the year. They have 3 in San Diego and 3 in San Francisco. The Padres have been up and down this year. They look like one of the best teams at times. They look like a pretty mediocre team at times. The Giants have been pretty consistently bad. So you want to take advantage of those 6 games you have against the Giants there in the final 2 months or the final 2 weeks of the month. You do have a single game at home against the Cardinals to end the month. When you're the best team in baseball, these all look like very winnable series, but we all know this is baseball where anything can happen. If you don't believe me, go check out the results from the NCAA regionals. A lot of fun watching that. Sorry to the Tech fans out there, but just a lot of upsets, 4 seeds winning. This is baseball, and anything can happen in a small sample size. Some of the key storylines that I'm going to be watching in the month of June. One for me is, can this Braves team just not let up? Again, they've gotten off to the great start. They like I said, they still hit some rough patches. The offense, had a week and a half kind of dry spell. You lost your hottest hitter in Drake Baldwin in the middle of May, and you still went 18-10 in the month. So they've hit a little bit of adversity. But can they avoid just having that complete crash out of a month? June is typically one of the best months of the season for this team. We typically see the baseball start flying more, which is generally good for this offense, which has a lot of power, can hit a lot of home runs. It's only 25 games this month. You have 5 off days, 1 every week. The longest stretch of games you have is 9. That should allow you to manage the rotation well, make sure guys who need it get an extra day of rest. So I think that's going to be a good thing for this team. Look, even if you just go 15-10 this month, and I think that should probably be the minimum expectation for this team, you're still 55-30 going into July. You're still in a great spot. If they win every series, that's 16 wins. I'd really like to see this team go 17-8 this month, and I think that's very doable for this ball club and for this and for the schedule that they have. Some other storylines to keep an eye on. One, is Ronald just completely back? Is this stretch that we saw, and if you check out Mark DeRosa on MLB Network, he talked about, Ronald closing out his stance a little bit. We talked about it at the beginning of the year. Ronald was a lot more open in his stance at the beginning of the year. Now it looks like he's adjusted that and he's got a little bit more closed. Is that the reason why he's had so much success lately? And is that just going to be what sets him off at being an MVP again? Or was this just a good, 4 or 5 game stretch for Ronald? I think that's the number one storyline for me, because again, Ronald's one of the most important players for this team, for this offense. If he's doing what he's been doing at the top of the order, this offense is going to be just fine. Number 2, injured players returning. Baldwin, most notably, should be back later this month. Again, you get him back the way that he was hitting to begin the year. And if Ronald is really back to being Ronald, this offense is going to be just fine. Waldrop could be back at the end of the month. He just started his rehab process. Again, it's going to be a long one, probably at least the full month of June, but there's a chance that, he gets back sometime this month. If not, then maybe really early in July. How does he continue to progress in his rehab? Could he take home spot or somebody's spot in the rotation? Is he back to being that guy we saw at the end of last year? Does Schwellenbach start to ramp things up? We know he's throwing. Does he get closer and closer to a rehab assignment where we could potentially see him maybe in late July, early August? Number 3 for me, does the run game improve? If you look at Baseball Savant's base running runs value, the Rays are actually 16th, which is much higher than I would have expected, but they're -1, 20th overall in runs taken via stolen bases. Do they finally get with the Antoine Richardson program? Stop getting picked off, start taking more advantage of pitchers, especially guys like Riley and even Olsen we've seen, and Drake Baldwin once he's back. Those guys, but pitchers aren't paying a lot of attention to, and you can take those easy bases on them. We know Acuña, we know Mateo are going to get their bases, but those other guys, that's really what made the Antoine Richardson effect, I think, with Juan Soto and others last year, are those situations where you have runners that maybe pitchers aren't paying the most attention to, and you just take advantage of that. Number 4, can the pitching continue to dominate? What direction do Elder and Strider go in? Can Bryce Elder, again, I'm a believer. I think the pitch mix change has made Bryce Elder a legitimate, at least middle of the rotation arm. Does he continue to see that? Or as the book gets out on him now with this new pitch mix, the teams adjust to him? What direction does Elder go in? What direction does Strider go in? As I said, I think the stuff looks completely dominant, but he hasn't quite put it all together yet. Can he put it all together? And can he look like a top of the rotation arm that you can put next to Chris Sale for a nice 1-2 punch in the rotation? What direction did those two starters go in? I think is going to be a big storyline for the month of June and the rest of the season. Number 5, who takes the shortstop spot? Does Jorge Mateo continue this good stretch? And does he just ultimately become the starting shortstop? Does Ha-Seong Kim get going and maybe he takes that job back full time? That's certainly something to watch as the month of June progresses. And then number 6 for me, can the bullpen hold up? Dylan Lee and Robert Suarez are both on pace to throw well over 70 innings this year. Kinley too. Now, Kinley's gone over 70 innings twice, including last year, but Lee and Suarez have never thrown more than 70 innings in a season. Can Walt Weiss continue to be super aggressive in using his best bullpen arms and going for wins, which has been great? It's why the Rays have gotten off to such a good start. Can you continue to do that, or are you going to have to lean on some more of your other arms in these tight games to try to save Dylan Lee, Robert Suarez, and make sure they don't get burnt out for the second half and hopefully a long postseason run? That's going to be something to watch and keep an eye on for the bullpen and Walt Weiss' usage of that bullpen the rest of the way. All right, next we'll turn our attention to this upcoming Blue Jays series and look at the pitching matchups and everything happening there. We'll do all that next. Before we get into that Blue Jays series, though, a couple of news items. Carlos Carrasco is back again. Is he becoming the new Jesse Chavez, where the Rays are going to DFA him every week and then just get him right back? I don't know, but glad to see that Cookie is back. He's had a really good season. Waldrop threw 2 scoreless innings in the FCL the other day as he begins his rehab. Bilo looked good. He did walk a couple batters, but just great to see him back out there. Again, we'll monitor his rehab and what that looks like. Are the Atlanta Braves getting ready to take on the Blue Jays in a 3-game series at home starting Tuesday night? Blue Jays were also off on Monday. Before that, they lost 2 in a row to split a 4-game series at Baltimore. They have won or split 5 straight series. They had 2 4-game series in there, one against the Yankees, one against the Orioles. They split both of them, but won the 3 other series that they've had previously. So they're maybe starting to turn a quarter a little bit. The World Series runner-up participants last year got off to a bad start, but they have been banged up all season. They currently have on their injured list right now, and I don't know the status of all of these players. Maybe some of them are coming back soon. Maybe some will be back this series, but Jose Barrios, Shane Bieber, Dylan Cease, Max Scherzer, Jimmy Garcia, Alejandro Kirk, Addison Barger, and Anthony Santander. There are more that are on the injured list. Those are just some of the most notable ones. That is a big list of really good players that are injured for them right now. You look at their offensive ranks this season, they're 22nd in runs scored. Haven't hit a lot of home runs. I put 56th in home runs, so that can't be right. 11th in batting average. They 27th most walks. They don't walk a lot, but they also don't strike out either. Second fewest strikeouts. They also don't steal a ton of bases. 27th in stolen bases this year. I was going to pull up their home run numbers real quick because I put the wrong number on. Their 20th in home runs this season with 56 home runs. So that's where that 56 number came from. It's kind of a similar approach to what the Braves have done this year. And in that they're not walking or striking out a lot. They're putting the ball in play, which is leading to a higher average. That's why they're 11th overall in batting average. The only difference to this point is that they haven't shown the power that the Braves have. And that's really the biggest difference between these two offenses. And that offensive strategy worked great in the postseason last year, putting the ball in play, not striking out a ton. And that's where they came within inches of beating the Dodgers in the World Series. So I like that the Braves have kind of adapted this approach that the Blue Jays had last year that took them to the World Series, because I think that is a good approach in the postseason. Put the pressure on the defense, don't strike out a ton, put the ball in play, but you still got to have power in order to get it done. They had some of that power last year. The Braves have that power so far this season. That's why you're seeing this offensive strategy, I think, work for the Braves, and why it hasn't worked out as well for the Blue Jays so far. You look at their bullpen, though. Louis Varland has been outstanding for them all year. That is not a guy you want to see in a close game late. He's given up just one earned run in 26 2/3 innings this season. Jeff Hoffman has struggled at times, giving up a lot of hits, but 45 strikeouts in 25 2/3 innings. That's dominant stuff. Mason Fluharty has 27 strikeouts in 19 2/3. Tyler Rogers can be tough as well. Braden Fisher has been good for them this season. It's a pretty solid bullpen for Toronto, and they have had to use them a lot. 5th most innings pitched by their bullpen in MLB this year, as their starters have been banged up and haven't been able to go very deep. You look at who's hot for the Blue Jays. Jesus Sanchez is hitting .387 over his last 11 games, but he might be hurt now as well. This is the luck for the Blue Jays this year. A bit of a misunderstanding between him and a young fan in the stands. It looked like he was calling for the fan to throw him the baseball, and then he turned around as the fan threw the baseball. It hit him in the hand. Don't really know the status of that hand, but just, again, it's the luck of the Blue Jays this year. Ernie Clement is hitting .362 over his last 13 games with a .992 OPS. And then Vlad Jr., he's hitting for average and getting on base, near 500 on base percentage. But he has just one home run since April 20th. Huge home run drought for Vladdy Jr. Hopefully that continues in this Braves series, but still, he's getting on base. He's getting his hits. You look at the players who are not hot right now. Andres Jimenez has a .461 OPS in his last 13 games. Okamoto has a .571 OPS and is hitting just .140 in his last 13 games with 21 strikeouts. The one guy in the lineup that you can get to swing and miss. You look at the pitching matchups for this series. It's Kevin Gausman versus Bryce Elder. Gausman's been really good despite the drop in strikeout rate. It's really just 2 pitches with him, but that splitter is one of the best in baseball. Gets a lot of weak contact and a lot of swings and misses on it. For Elder, how does he bounce back from his worst start of the year? I'm expecting him to have a good outing and bounce back in a good way. And the second game in the series on Wednesday, it's Patrick Corbin versus Grant Holmes. Seems like a pretty fitting matchup with these two guys. They're probably the 4th, 5th starter in these rotations, although with the Blue Jays injuries, Patrick Corbin might be their 2nd best starter right now. Corbin is kind of like Martin Perez, though, and a veteran who has been finding a way to give his team 5 solid innings. You just hope Holmes can do the same and get you at least through 5 innings. I mean, when Holmes is on his game, we've seen him pitch, 6 scoreless innings before, or go even further than that. Just depends on if he can get to that lineup a second time. And then in the finale, it's to be determined versus Chris Sale. I like the Braves' chances in that one. I like their chances anytime Chris Sale is pitching, but especially if we don't even know who's pitching for the Blue Jays. So again, you got 2 of your best starters in Chris Sale and Bryce Elder going in this series. It's one you feel like the Braves should win at home. Hopefully that Blue Jays offense stays down, and hopefully Ronald Acuña and the Braves offense can stay hot and get a series win to kick off the month of June. Excited for what's coming up this month. Again, hopefully the Braves are not able to just maintain, but continue to grow and get better and better each and every series, each and every month for this Braves team. But a lot of fun so far through the first 2 months, expecting bigger things for them going forward. All right, that will do it for this episode of Locked On Braves. Thanks so much for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On Braves on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. You can follow me on Twitter at ShortstopBall, the podcast at LockedOn_Braves. Again, thanks for making us your first listen of the day. Go check out Locked On MLB for your second listen, and we will talk to you next time.